Well, it's been gloom and doom across at least the northern mid-Atlantic states up into southern and central New England. Some areas did get a break today to the north, but there will be a general break in the gloom and doom for Wednesday, and it might last into at least part of Thursday before it comes back on Friday. We've got a few systems running around in the tropics, but nothing that is pending. And we will talk about that. And we will talk about the weekend and the long range and anything else you want to talk about tonight on this Joe and Joe Weather Show for a Tuesday, the 26th of September, 2023. And Joe, the Joe and Joe Weather Show is brought to you by
Omni Landscape and Garden Supply, Omni True Value in West Babylon.
Yes, they've got mulch, topsoil, sand. This winter they'll have plenty of salt. And they also have whatever you might need to fix up your house or make sure it's okay in case we do get some stormy weather. 631-756-1125 is the telephone number. They've got the best prices anywhere the website is.
OmniTrueValue.com as I'm munching on ice cube.
Go Tempest by WeatherFlow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned to the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code I want a weather station, we're back to the usual discount, Joe. We get
10% off. You missed it, folks. You had your shot at 15% and $40, but we're back to 10%, which is really not all that bad. Take advantage of it.
yes.
Yes.
And there we are. I'm more comfortable on the left.
Okay.
This is not a political statement, just in case anybody wonders.
Oh, there we go. Wow.
What? I flipped you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it goes fast.
Yeah.
I just gotta move you with the mouse.
Okay. Yes. All right.
Okay, so I need some clarification here, and you need to provide me with this clarification. So I noticed that you posted about the winter forecast from whose name now escapes my mind. I'm sorry,
Weather trends.
Weather Trends 360. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you said that in there, you said that you'd said two different things. You said first off, you said that the snowfall amounts would be 20% higher than last year.
I did not say that. I was quoting directly from Weather Trends 360.
All right, so did he mean 20% above higher than normal, or just 20% above last year's totals? Because I'm thinking, okay, well, New York City got 2 inches, so if they're going to get 20% more, that means they're going to get 2.4 inches. So I'm guessing he meant 20% above normal.
I think he said, first of all, I think he's taking into account either the eastern United States or the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And many places in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast got a lot more than just 2 inches that Central Park saw. But I think what the general idea of that message, and it was a short, terse message, was if you think we're going to have a repeat of last winter, it ain't happening.
Yeah. And well, those kind of winters, just like the ones that are on the other side of the equation, those are exceptions rather than the rules. I mean, they show up every 30 or 40 years, and they pop up a real high number or a real low number, and everything else sort of gravitates somewhere in between those two. So to have 2 back-to-back years with hardly any snowfall would be odd.
Yeah, we have had, now I'm talking just at Central Park, we have had some years or winters where we've gone 3 and even 4 years in a row, 4 winters in a row, where we've had like 40 plus inches of snow.
Right.
We've had situations where we put together more than a few above normal years, but you're absolutely right. Years like what we had this past winter, where we've had only a couple of inches, or years where we've only had single-digit amounts in terms of snowfall, come along, once or twice a decade.
Right.
We rarely.
Well, I would say maybe more than one, maybe less than once or twice a decade.
Well, the thing is, we never put together those kind of winters more than once. And so for me to say simply that next winter, that this upcoming winter, we're going to see a lot more snow than we did last winter is an easy statement to make because it always happens that way.
Right, and
Oh,
the bar is so low. I mean,
exactly.
it really is very, very low.
I
I
went
know.
through.
I just wanted to straighten that out because, well, and it's wrong for me to just pick one spot because depending on where you are, the numbers are different. But still, 20% above last year's totals doesn't really give you very much. I mean,
Right.
it really doesn't. So I'm thinking maybe he meant 20% above normal because then you went on to say 15% above normal, which I think made more sense. Okay, well that's the one thing I'm going to go back, and I meant to mention this last week when we were talking about the hurricane season we're having and the fact that it's not behaving the way a hurricane season normally behaves in a developing El Nino, and there could be a number of reasons for that, um, including the fact that everything has been strange for the better part of 8 or 9 months now. We seem to be getting things are happening, rules that we so-called rules that we follow seem to be getting broken all over the place. So who knows what's in store for us come the winter time. I have a feeling there's probably going to be a few surprises in store along the way, but that's a very vague statement on my part. Um, Nick M says, "Why is it calling for above average snowfall? Is also saying temperatures will be above average because the two, Nick, don't necessarily go together. I mean, if you really want to just sort of look at it, who cares what the temperatures are on either side? It's when the storms come uh, that the temperatures need to be cold enough. So it could be above normal. We've had above normal snowfalls with winters with above normal, over the 3 month period that average out to be above normal temperatures. That's not a weird thing. That happens more often than you think.
Absolutely. 1982 83 winter was an El Nino winter. It was one of the warmest El Nino winters in over 50 years. And yet, right smack in the middle of that winter season, February 11th and 12th, the so called megalopolitan blizzard with 1 to 2 feet of snow from Washington on up to Boston. The really only big snowfall that occurred that entire winter season.
All right.
And it's a funny thing how one big storm like that can, bias or paint a picture, a completely different picture. If you had asked anyone up until that snowfall how the winter was going to say, hey, we haven't had any snow, no big
Two,
deal. But it's
2000,
that,
2005, 2006. That was another interesting. That was also an above normal temperature winter. I don't know if that was an El Nino year or a La Nina year, but that was a year of above normal temperatures. But it was also a year that every time we had a system come by, and there was quite a few. I don't know that there were any big snowfalls that winter, any single big snowfalls, but there were a lot of small to medium sized snowfalls, and they were all rain changing over to snow, accumulating snow, which was even more unusual. Uh,
Mhm.
uh, with that, I think that 2000 was it 2005? Was it Christmas of 2005? I don't remember if it was that. Maybe it wasn't that year, but the thing was, there were a lot of systems that year that it was rain, would start as rain, change over to snow, and we would get like normally when that happens, you don't get very much. But in this instance, in that particular year, you'd get 5 inches, you get six, you get four, whatever it was. So yeah, it happens. So it's not unusual. I would also just stay. I will just also just say you're wasting energy focusing on this sort of broad 3 month view of what the temperatures are going to be and what the precip is going to be because 3 months is a long time. It's 90 days.
Right.
So you could have, you get these you could have what seems like an uneventful winter, and then you get these windows of opportunity, as I like to call them, open up, and there you go. So we're talking about the winter, and it's not even October yet. By the way, Sal Blandino said something, brought something up that you said, Joe, Okay. And I'm thinking that maybe you must have spent time with Uncle Arthur, perhaps, or Andorra, and orchestrated this. I'm going to find the comment. I want to read it to you word for word.
Not on the chat board, was it? Or
No, 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 no. It was a comment he left because if you don't watch the show live, you certainly can watch it on the replay
right.
on my YouTube channel, which if you subscribe to it, you can get notifications that we're on Sunday through Thursday at 7:35 p.m. and sometimes on Saturdays. So make sure you subscribe and turn the notifications on. Oh, and if you like tonight's show, please hit the like button because Joe and I like to get 100 likes. Okay, so that was my opportunity to do a shameless self-promotion, which I am known to take advantage of. But I'm trying to pull up the YouTube, the comments here.
And
So,
thanks to the chairman, first one to hit the chat, hit super chat tonight, and he also points out that Central Park, since 1869, Joe, has had only 11 winters with less than 10 inches of snow. And of course, one of those was this past winter, which now stands as the all-time record low.
yes, correct. That is correct. Um, Hold on a second. I'm getting it now. While it's coming up, the crux of the comment was, Joe, that apparently, and oh, here it goes. So he says, Joe, question mark. So I'm not sure if that means you or me. I think it means me. I remember a few years ago Joe Rayo mentioning that it never rains on October 6th. And ever since he said that, we've had a streak of that day being beautiful with lots of sunshine for like the last 3 years. Do you think hopefully the streak can hold this year and keep it going through the first weekend of October on the 7th and 8th? The Futurecast keeps showing stuff from offshore drifting back toward. Now, mind you, folks, it's the 26th, so we're talking, what, 12 days from now. The Futurecast keeps showing stuff from offshore drifting back toward us again, but hopefully it's wrong and comes back or comes quickly during the middle of next week and finally gets pushed away towards the 6th through the first weekend of October. So, apparently you worked some magic when you said that because
I don't even remember saying that.
I kind of remember you quoting a statistic that on whatever day it was, but let's assume it was October the 6th,
The only one who
where
might
where since 1869 it's only rained like, nothing or very little for some reason.
the only person who would know something like that, who would have a record of that, would be Rob Friedowitz,
Yeah,
who, and I might have been quoting him,
I think you were.
October 6th. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think you were. I can't remember. I cannot even remember what I had for dinner 2 hours ago, but I do sort of remember you know, talking about this. So, and you know what? It kind of makes sense if there is such a day where there's been very little, if any, rainfall, it would occur 100 and whatever it was, 100, 1869. What is that? 154 October 6 or 153 October 6. October is for a lot of places in the eastern part of the United States. October is the driest month of the year. So, so that you have that.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Great.
gloom and doom, Joe. It's been gloom and doom. I had somebody lecture me on Facebook that I should not use the phrase gloom and doom. I should just say gloom and only use doom when when there's a catastrophe.
Well, some people feel that when you say gloom and doom, you're talking about, heavy rain, wind, or whatever like that.
I have used gloom and doom to describe onshore flow and low clouds for a long, long time. It is my signature statement. Okay? If when someone says gloom and doom, you should automatically say that's Joe Cioffi's statement. He may have a trademark on that. So, you might owe him money.
The kind of day we had yesterday, I would have used a different term. I would have just said the weather is indifferent.
Yeah, no, for me, when it's low clouds, when it's cloudy all day long, day after day after day, maybe it rains, maybe it doesn't, maybe it pours, maybe it doesn't. But it's that dreary, just miserable, sort of dark out all day long, especially when you get into the fall months and the sun angle gets lower and lower. It's depressing. So I call it gloom and doom. And you know what? When gloom and doom comes to an end, um, you feel a whole lot better, more than you otherwise would be. It gets you to appreciate the sunny days that lie ahead, sort of.
That's exactly what the late PBS artist Bob Ross says when he's painting a picture. He says if you're going to use dark, you also need light, and if you have light, you also need dark. And in fact, he said we need a little sadness in our life, because if we didn't have sadness, then we wouldn't know when to celebrate the happy times.
Right. It's like when Morticia Addams was redecorating the guest house for the newlywed couple that moved in, and she offered her decorating suggestions. The floors, black. The walls, black. The furniture, black. The ceilings, to which the wife says, the ceiling's black, and Morticia says, certainly not. Off black. After all, you do need contrast.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of dismal, here we are. I've got the surface map from 5 o'clock this afternoon, and the curse of the onshore flow continues. However, the weak low that is probably part Ophelia, by this time it's probably a very small part Ophelia, has now drifted pretty far to the south and has another low center that's developing out to the east. It's very weak. And we also have a strong high up to the... I noticed this morning that temperatures up in southeastern Canada were in the 20s. So there's some cooler air up there, but there's a strong high, a 1034 high sitting east of James Bay, and we've just been waiting for this high to just press far enough south to bring down some drier air, and it certainly succeeded. If you were up, north of, basic, I don't know how far the clearing line did manage to get further south as the day wore on, but in fact, we'll go to the satellite loop, and you can kind of see where the northern edge of the cloud line is, Joe. It's just about over you. All of Connecticut now has cleared out, all of Massachusetts, most of New York State. There's a little cloud cover up along I-90, and pretty decent in Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. And all we got to do is get this whole thing to sort of shift its way a little bit further to the south, and we will see some improvement for the northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states. However, you'll notice a ton of clouds going all the way down the coast, all the way down to Florida, and even into the Caribbean. Now, there's nothing here that poses a threat to become a tropical storm, but this moisture, yes, it's sinking southward, Joe, but it's not going to be very far away.
Well, first of all, the skies have cleared over my neck of the woods, over Putnam. In fact, we cleared out. We started seeing sunshine breaking through shortly after the noon hour. And now I'd have to say that we're mainly clear. So the clouds that are being indicated on the satellite is probably just off to my south. So we should have at least a partly cloudy to clear night tonight. And it's going to be getting cool here, Joe. I think temperatures by daybreak, probably I closed a couple of windows, actually, because it's already getting kind of chilly out there. Could get down to like 40 degrees in some rural valley spots here in the Hudson Valley by daybreak tomorrow morning. And
let me just take a look, because I did notice last night for someplace in upstate New York they had a frost advisory, I think. Let's take a look. We'll bring up the watches and warnings. Up in northeastern New York, Joe, you got a handful of counties that have a frost advisory. There's an absolute lack of any kind of adverse weather watches and warnings across just about all of the United States today. So from that standpoint, in terms of big storms, don't have much happening. Now, on the radar, I will give it a quick refresh. And the radar's quiet. There are some just scattered echoes. A lot of the stuff, these little, dots that are in southern New Jersey, southern and coastal New Jersey, and over the Delmarva Peninsula. I don't think any of that is actually reaching the ground. Now you go further south off the southeast coast, off the coast of Georgia and South Carolina, we do have some showers, and then further south, just off the east coast, northeast coast of Florida, we've got some showers and some hefty thunderstorms that are moving across that part of the state, and some scattered downpours and thunderstorms that extend further south. Not much on the west coast except in the southwest corner, and a couple of cells up in the panhandle. We do have some storms tonight, some bands of showers and storms rotating around the Great Lakes. And if I go back to the satellite loop, you'll notice there is a rotation there. There's a bit of an upper low that is sitting somewhere in eastern Iowa. That's kind of the driver of all of this. And the Storm Prediction Center has got a marginal risk in the lower lakes and in the western part of the Ohio Valley. Also a marginal risk in southwest Texas and in southern New Mexico, and a small area of marginal risk to cover those thunderstorms in northeast Florida, and general thunderstorms up in the Pacific Northwest. Not much severe weather lies ahead. We're at the time of the year now where severe weather is really going to kind of calm down, unless there's some sort of major non-tropical or a tropical storm, or maybe a more intense non-tropical feature, which usually you don't see at the end of September or at least the first half of October. Marginal risk for tomorrow in southern Indiana, southwest Ohio, much of Kentucky and northern Tennessee. And no severe weather is forecast for the next day, which is, I guess that's Thursday into Friday, right? Yes, should be. Thursday into Friday. No severe weather is forecast. Just a couple of odd places here and there where there's some general thunderstorm activity. So, kind of seeing the signs of autumn here overtaking the United States, and things are to a certain extent are calming down. So, we're entering a time where, Joe, where weather's usually fairly quiet unless there's a tropical storm or a hurricane running around, which we don't have near the United States, at least.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So that works. And now WPC is indicating 1/4 to 1/2 an inch, and this would be probably for Friday, for New Jersey, southeast PA, a little bit higher over Long Island, maybe 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and also for southern Connecticut and southeastern New England. All the real heavy precip is offshore, and also over Florida, quite a bit of rain over Florida, several inches or more over the next 7 days. Some patchy 1/2 to 3/4 inch rains in the Ohio Valley, also up in the northern Rockies and in the Pacific Northwest, and in a couple of places up in the northern plains. But except for this system on Friday, I'm thinking we may actually luck out for the weekend, pretty much overall in the Northeast.
Yeah, the system on Friday is more or less an inverted trough, although I did hear one forecaster say it's actually Ophelia making a comeback.
Make it stop. Please make them stop. I have to say that. That's another trademark line.
Yeah, well, as I said, it looks to me like it's just an inverted trough type scenario coming, pointing a finger, if you will, back toward the New York metropolitan area.
It's not Ophelia. It's not. It's not.
I can't control what others say, Joe.
No, of course you can't. Okay.
But it looks like.
How come you're not saying it? How come everybody else is saying this, but you're not saying it?
Oh dear me!
And I just want to go yell back and go.
I will simply say that, and this is to go along with what you just said, based upon the WPC quantitative precipitation figures, that parts of Long Island from this Friday system may see, I would say, anywhere between 1/2 to maybe out in eastern Long Island, perhaps 3/4 of an inch of rain. But areas that are inland, north and west of New York City, will probably see a lot less.
Yeah.
Basically,
Friday to me looks like, back to the gloom and doom type of day, but it should, just as you think, just when you think it's probably going to be a problem beyond one day, the high sort of rebuilds and the everything gets suppressed to the south. So yeah, it doesn't, to me it's no big deal for Friday if we wind up getting a little bit of rain.
Yeah, but still, even, we went through 3 consecutive, yes, I'm going to use the term now, gloom and doom days. Right here in Putnam Valley, we had 2.54 inches of rain. However, we had no flooding problems because the rain began early Saturday morning and finally ceased late in the day yesterday. So we're talking about 2.54 inches of rain stretched out
over 48 hours, right? Or 72.
Right. So it really wasn't all that. If you could stretch it out like that, it's not all that bad, although it's still kind of gloomy for 3 consecutive days.
It's like you're getting 5/100ths of an inch of rain an hour.
Yeah.
You're not going to get flash flooding from 500/100ths of an inch of rain an hour.
It did briefly late on Sunday and again early Monday morning. It did come down hard enough. Interestingly, on my weather station, it's not a tempest. I'm sorry, but on my weather station on the control board, when it comes down really hard, all of a sudden there's a message that flashes. It's raining cats and dogs. And sure enough, you look out the window and it's coming down fairly hard. So it did that for a short time on Sunday and again early Monday morning. But other than that, other than those cases, the rest of the time, it was just steady, light rain or mist or drizzle or bleh. And that's how you end up getting 2.54 inches of rain over a time span of more than 48 hours.
Oh, the chairman, Scott Briller, hit Super Chat again. Thank you, Scott. And he points out, Joe, in 2017, now, and I remember this, Hurricane Ophelia became the easternmost major hurricane in the Atlantic before, and I remember that, before hitting Ireland with its worst storm in 50 years. In fact, we covered it here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show when it hit Ireland.
Was that 6 years ago?
Yeah, it was. Wow.
Were we doing Joe and Joe 6 years ago?
Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe I was with that. It was just the Joe Show at the time.
Oh, okay.
No, maybe we were, because when did you come to FiOS?
January of 2017.
So this was September. This was September in 2017. So yeah, we did do it together.
Right, it's possible.
No, I have distinct memory of that now too. It's all coming back to me.
Right.
I still can't remember what I had for dinner 3 hours ago. 71 likes so far, Mr. Rayo. So we're 29 shy of 100. So hit the like button if you like it.
I love this clown on the chat board, by the way. If he's not Bobby Rayo, if he's not Rayo's coins, now we have Rayo's stamps.
Well, as long I see it, Rayo's stamps, yes. Well, as long as he's not Rayo's sauce, because that's trademarked and copyrighted.
Right.
So anyhow, this is what the upper air looks like. We've got actually a very strong closed ridge sitting over Hudson Bay, southern parts of Hudson Bay in eastern Canada, and a trough off the west coast. The flow's kind of split because there's an upper low that's sitting underneath that upper high in Iowa, as we pointed out. And this is not an unusual pattern in the fall. The atmosphere is just sort of figuring out now that, you know what, the summer heating is over with, and now it's going through the process of trying to change. And as we go forward, you'll notice there's still this propensity for troughs to come off the East Coast and cut off. Here's another one on Saturday. This is a system that's going to maybe bring a little bit of rain on Friday, but then that upper low moves east, opens up out in the Atlantic. So you've got a weak ridge in the middle of the U.S., a trough in the west that goes from Montana down into the southwest, moving forward in time. We don't have a real northwest flow from Canada setting up. Although, if you want to believe this in the long, long range toward the very end of the period, which would be around the middle of the month, all of a sudden we've got a deep trough that goes from the North Pole all the way into the Gulf states. So we'll see if that winds up happening. But right now we're sort of in that transition period. And as far as the tropics are concerned, if you notice out in the Atlantic, and I'm going to just back it up. Well, this is where we are now. So let's just go to, say, Thursday. Much of the flow across the Atlantic is from west to east, and the southern part of the westerlies actually go pretty far south, almost south of 30 degrees north. So it's hard to imagine a tropical system coming out of the deep tropics and making it to the eastern seaboard with a pattern like this. We don't see signs of another low cutting off the way we saw last week off the southeast coast, which led to Tropical Storm Ophelia. And on the right, you'll notice that there is actually a hurricane that is moving northwestward by the time we get to Sunday, but that's going to recurve, I think. So it goes it goes well east of Bermuda and gets caught by an upper low heading toward Iceland and passes just north of the Azores. So at least from the standpoint of stuff that still might develop in the tropical Atlantic, it's going to be pretty hard for it to get to the United States or into the Caribbean or the Gulf of Mexico, given the way the upper pattern is set up. So I guess we have to start thinking that if there's going to be anything that's going to resemble a threat, it's going to have to come from the Caribbean or perhaps from the southwestern Atlantic, which would be more of a homegrown type system like Ophelia was. But the time for tropical systems that move across the tropical Atlantic from off the African coast and develop out there is, we're kind of coming toward the end of that.
Right. We're halfway. We've reached the peak of the hurricane season, and now as we move down, so to speak, in terms of frequency of tropical cyclones, you're right, Joe. During the hurricane season, we look to various locations in the Atlantic Basin for storm development. They tend to form in the early part of the season, down toward the Bahamas, down toward let's say the Caribbean, and then during the middle part of the season, or near the peak of the season, we look for those African waves that develop and send those storms all the way across the Atlantic over to North America. And you're right. Now that we're past the peak of the hurricane season, we're going to start seeing a drop off of those kind of storms in the coming days and weeks ahead of us.
We wanted to say, by the way, a big a round of hugs and congratulations to our Chuck Cardillo, one of the daily regulars here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, who now has a daughter-in-law. His son got married this weekend, and it was a beautiful wedding from what I understand, from what Chuck told me. The food was great, and a good time was had by all, and congratulations, and hopefully the grandkids come soon for you, Chuck, and for the missus. And there's our GFS with the rain tonight, mostly offshore, dropping southward as that nice high pushes in. I think we can hold on till Thursday. We're also getting to the time of year, Joe, where you start to get the nights are long, and if you get an onshore flow, even if the air is generally on the dry side, sometimes you can get low clouds to come in at night and during the early morning hours, to daybreak, and then some areas might have some clouds that come in that way. I don't know if that'll happen Wednesday night into Thursday morning. But then on Friday, you can see that inverted trough that develops rain during the day Friday, but it's mostly along the coast. It really doesn't get inland, at least on the GFS it doesn't. And then Saturday morning, this is where I think, Saturday I think may start off kind of cloudy. Whether the rain is still hanging around over Long Island the way the GFS has it, I'm not sure. But I think Saturday may start off kind of cloudy, and then maybe later in the day that drier air comes down again, much like what we're seeing right now in the Northeast. And then Sunday, to me, looks like definitely the better of the two weekend days. You're going to have a high settling in West Virginia. Low pressure well to the southeast of North Carolina, so it should be a nice day with sunshine and temperatures in the 70s. And looking ahead to next week, the onshore flow comes back on Wednesday with a high moving off the Gulf Coast of Maine, and but there's no mechanism here to trigger off any kind of widespread rainfall in the eastern part of the United States. I think you can make a case that we could be dry all next week. Certainly from Sunday through all of next week and maybe even into the following weekend.
Well, CPC, the Climate Prediction Center, is forecasting right on into the first week of October on their 6 to 10 and 8 to 14-day outlooks. Something like 60 to 70% probability of above normal or warmer than normal temperatures here in the Northeast, and also below normal precipitation. So we may be in for a spell of mild or warm or even dry conditions, as you just alluded to, Joe, maybe right on through the first week of October.
Yeah, and why not? This is actually I love this time of year. My leaves are already turning. I've got white acorns. What was the other one? There were three different. My friend Owen showed me three different acorns the other day. One was a white oak. They were all oaks. One was a chestnut oak, and I forgot what the other one was. And the acorns all look very different. Oh, it had a weird name to it. It was oh God, it was a cone something acorn. A cone something oak. Oh well.
Can you tell the winter weather, by looking at the acorns, Joe? Or
no, I can't tell the weather by looking at the acorns, Joe. I cannot do that. I don't know.
My wife, Renata, is into the woolly bear caterpillar craze of trying to forecast. The only problem is I don't think we've seen very many woolly bears. I think it's been too wet. Maybe they all drowned.
I see enough of real bears here. I don't need to see any woolly bears or anything else.
And William Huber, he writes on the chat board, Joe Rayo, perfect rain for your lawn. Has to be nice and green by now. I'll tell you what, William Huber, the problem is too much rain. We've had something like 8 or 9 inches of rain so far in September. I mean, we just had 2.5 inches in the last 3 days here. And my problem is that there are parts of my lawn that are too soft to mow. Not just even with the tractor mower, but even with the hand mower, Joe. Even the hand mower leaves these dark tracks because the ground is just too soft. Mm. It's really been an incredibly wet month of September, and it's difficult when the ground is soft to mow or mulch your lawn.
Frank Scalera, I'm with you. It's his favorite time of the year. He can't wait for the leaves to start changing colors. As here, like I said, I've got leaves on the ground already. But when we go to the fall colors, when they start peaking later this month, I mean, it's just gorgeous up here in the mountains in North Georgia. 87 likes, Joe. 87, which means we only need 13 to get 100. So if you haven't hit the like button, here is your opportunity. Now, do you have Briller Jeopardy? Because I do not.
I believe I have a Briller Jeopardy.
Oh, joy. Let's do it. Shall we?
Surely. I was just going to say that up here, a lot of the leaves started falling, at the end of August, and they look like kind of brownish color. And I think it's partly due to the fact that we've had just too much rain. It's nice when you have just the right amount of moisture, especially with deciduous trees like the maple trees. They turn these beautiful colors during the fall season. But if you get too much water, too much precipitation, even those leaves start to turn brownish. And I haven't seen much color at all so far.
I wonder if the smoke that we've had this summer season. I wonder if that impacts it.
Well, let me see here. Yeah, here it is. Here we go. On Briller Jeopardy tonight, ladies and gentlemen. What 10 states We give you 10 states now. Average the least number of tornadoes per year. So you want 10 states that have the least amount of tornadic activity.
Okay, so I would say, well, let's let the chat board figure this one out. Don't say if I'm right or wrong, but I'll throw a couple of out there that come to mind. So I will say Maine, Alaska, Maine, Alaska. Let's throw Vermont and New Hampshire in there too. So I'll just put those 4 up there. Let's say, Alan Rupa says Alaska. Alan, I responded to your emails. I hope you got it. Alan Rupa says Alaska. Joe Chuck Cardillo says Arizona. Lou Arizio says Maine. And let's see. Johnny Quest says West Virginia. Maggie P says California, Alaska, and Hawaii. Forgot about Hawaii. So have at it, Joe. Any of those on the list?
Well, we have mentioned out of the 10, we've mentioned 5, and those 5 are Maine, Alaska, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Hawaii. Those are the 5 out of the 10 so far with the least amount of tornadoes typically during the course of a year.
Is California on that list?
California is not on the list.
Is New York on the list?
New York is not on the list.
Well, if New York's not on the list, then New Jersey is not on the list.
Wrong. New Jersey is on the list.
Really? With all the tornadoes that they've had in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, that they're on that list?
They're actually number 10 on the list and tied with Maine.
Well, since we're talking about small states, what about Rhode Island?
Rhode Island is on the list. It's number 3.
And what about Delaware?
Delaware. Are you listening, President Biden? Number 6 on the list.
See, now here, well, I mean, you're talking about states that are so small. I mean, in Delaware, you cross that, and I've said this before, you cross the Delaware Bridge, they take you for the toll when you get on the other side. The sign says, "Welcome to Delaware" on one side, if you're on 95, and then, on the other side, you pay the toll. The sign says, "You are now leaving Delaware." So, I mean, these are, basically, I don't know, it's like a house on a block compared to the sizes of the other states. So how many do we have left?
Let's see. Well, first of all, New Jersey and Maine are tied for number 10. So there are actually 11 states on this list.
Okay.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 3 left.
Well, Frank R. says Washington, so I'm going to throw in Oregon. So let's say Washington and Oregon.
Washington is not on the chairman's list, and neither is Oregon.
Really? Really? That's interesting. Patrick Darcy offers Maryland.
Is Maryland on the list? No.
Leon Probitsky offers Utah.
Utah, is that on the list? No.
Maggie P. offers Idaho.
Idaho. That's a nice potato of a state, but it's not on the list.
Badly not on the list. And I'm guessing then Nevada is not on the list?
Nevada is number 9.
Oh, okay. So now we got 1 left.
2 left, I think.
2
4,
left.
7, 8. Yeah, 2 left.
Well, what about Arizona?
Arizona? Arizona is not on the list.
Okay. I'm going to say, Johnny Sack 77, that North Dakota is not on this list.
North Dakota is not on the list either.
Yeah, because they get some pretty nasty, severe weather up in both Dakotas. Robert Barbecue Bob, Joe here. I think that's new on he's new on the chat board. Hi, Robert Barbecue Bob. Connecticut.
Connecticut is on the list.
We have 1 left?
Yes.
Well, you said New York. I doubt. I don't think Pennsylvania's on there.
No, it's not.
Well, the only New England state, Joe, that was not mentioned here is Massachusetts.
Massachusetts is on the list.
Massachusetts?
Yes.
I know.
So
I mean, I've heard of they use some people call it Taxachusetts.
yeah.
Massachusetts. Okay, that's a new one for me. Thanks, Junior. Junior said Massachusetts.
So we have in order: Alaska, Hawaii, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, Delaware, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Nevada, and tied for 10, New Jersey and Maine.
Wonderful. Brandon
Yep.
Doherty hitting super chat. Thank you, Brandon, for hitting the tip jar tonight.
But
But what? You have a bonus question?
but there's more.
Oh, there's more. Oh my.
Now let's go the other way. What 5 states average the most tornadoes each year?
What 5 states average the most?
Yes.
I would say Texas. Texas.
You want me to say yes or no?
Well, all right. I'll say Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado.
Well, congratulations, Joe. You got 3 out of the 5. Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas are on the list.
Okay, so
Gail would say this Kansas too.
Lou Alessi says Arkansas, since it's next to Oklahoma.
No, not Arkansas.
Lou Arizio brings up Nebraska.
Nebraska, I would have chosen Nebraska, but unfortunately, it's not on the list of 5. It probably would make the list of 10, but we don't have a list of 10 for these.
Dennis Cassia throws out Iowa.
Iowa?
Yeah.
No,
who got absolutely destroyed by Penn State the other day, but that's another story. Iowa's not on the list. How about Rich Rothmansky and Chuck Cardillo both saying Mississippi?
Mississippi, number 4.
Number 4. So we got one left, right?
Yes.
Well, Junior says Alabama.
And that's it. Number 5, Alabama. Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Mississippi, and Alabama.
All right. Well, that was interesting enough. That was good. That was good. All right. Anything else you want to rant about? You got anything on your mind? Anybody hack you off lately?
No, absolutely nothing.
Get off my phone, you old bag. I haven't thought about that one in a while. Yeah, I've got nothing else to say.
All right, so we'll be back. We will be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat station.
Yes, we will. And the Joe and Joe Weather Show, brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system. Join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is pinned at the top of the chat board. It's also on the descriptor to this video. And if you use the coupon code I Want a Weather Station, you get
10% off.
Yes, 10. Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. 631-756-1125 for the best prices in town. And if you're a snow removal person that watches the Joe and Joe Weather Show and you can get to Omni, that's your place to get all the rock salt you need. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
All righty. So
looking at the, at least on my counter, Joe, we hit 111 on the like button tonight.
Yep. Thank you very much for those of you who did. And you have the super chat list.
Yes, we do. We had the chairman who hit super chat not once but twice tonight, as well as supplying our wonderful Briller Jeopardy game tonight. Chuck Cardillo and Brandon Doherty. Thank you very much.
Christinapedia, did we miss your birthday? If we did, happy birthday. Okay, Brandon, I really didn't mean to mock. I'm not really mocking Delaware. I like the state. You don't have, Delaware doesn't have a sales tax. How can I not like a state that doesn't have you have to like a state that doesn't have a sales tax. But no, I was not mocking Delaware. Christinapedia, if it's your birthday or was your birthday, it was the 6th. Okay. We were only off by 20 days. But you know whose birthday it is tomorrow, Joe? It's Alan Casper's birthday.
Oh, you think he's ever going to make an appearance on Joe and
No. No, he's usually fading after 7 o'clock. And I'm not that far behind either.
All right.
I'm starting to where I have to drink a cup of coffee at 6 o'clock in the evening in order to get me to this. I mean, I'm fine now. I'm wide awake and wired, but getting there sometimes can be an issue.
Correct. If I'm correct, Alan is 10 years ahead of me.
Yes.
So it should be double sevens for him?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, those thicknesses keep rising.
I remember when I first saw him on television in the early 70s, and he had longish hair.
Mm-hmm.
His 20s back then, and now here he is, 77. Oh,
yep.
God.
And the gas bag is 7 years older than him.
Oh,
I mean, the shoe polish industry now is in a depression since he let his hair go natural. I had to say that. You opened the door.
Yeah, well.
Some
people just stay a little bit too long at the fair.
Yes, most carnival barkers do. And on that note, as I've already pretty much sunk myself here, we will see y'all tomorrow. Bye-bye. Oh, by the way, I meant to tell you. If you can make it, Joe, if you and Renata can make it, not this weekend, but next week. I think it's next weekend and the weekend after. There's a square dance in town.
Oh, down your way?
Yes. Promenade across the floor, sashay right on out the door. All right, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow.
This is the one that really hurts. If it doesn't work, we'll all be lost.
All right, exactly. Bye.